Another common way that people pull your strings instead of you pulling them yourself is this whole business of what I call the comparison trap. In a world of individuals, comparison is a senseless activity. You are unique in all the world. No one can get behind your eyeballs and be you. No one can experience you. The only thing that anyone can experience you with is their mind. Everything else is a step removed. Their thoughts are what they have to experience you with. And so too do you experience everyone else with your thoughts. You can be in a crowd at the largest stadium in the world, surrounded by 100,000 screaming people, and you experience it uniquely, alone. No one can get behind your eyeballs and inside your ears and experience it and hear it the way you hear it. Your red that you see, the color red, is your red, and it can't be mine. You can't see it the way I see it. And this is a very important mental concept to get to avoid being victimized by other people, because as you'll see in just a moment, there are people out there who would compare you all the time and use this as a way of controlling and manipulating and getting you to behave in the ways that they want you to behave. When you understand your existential aloneness, when you know that you are unique and special in all the world, then you stop the inclination to compare yourself to other people. You stop constantly telling yourself that you have to be like others. You stop constantly striving to accomplish and achieve at the same level that other people have achieved at. You get past this whole need to keep up with the Joneses, because that's a way of putting yourself into a victim trap that it's almost impossible to get out of. You see, even if you're in a race with somebody else, if you're looking over your shoulder to see how you're doing in comparison to how the other person is doing, then what you're really doing at that moment is saying that you are in charge of how I am feeling right now. However you perform, and my comparison to you is what makes me happy or not happy, and you've turned the strings over to somebody else. This is a really big area for most people. Most people find themselves unable to isolate themselves from comparing themselves from other people. Children grow up in a world where we hear things about peer pressure all the time, that there's a lot of peer pressure, that everybody has to fit in, and if you don't fit in, then you're isolated, and if you're isolated, then you're a reject, and if you're a reject, then you're an outcast, and it all goes on to all of these horrible labels that we place on people. We have to raise children to understand that there's no peer pressure in the world, that there are people out there who are saying, do things the way I do them, and then there are individuals who say, wait, I've got a mind of my own. You want your children to have a mind of their own. You too want to have a mind of your own. You want to think for yourself. You don't want to have somebody telling you constantly that you have to do it because everybody else does it. If you do things the way everybody else does, what have you got to offer? I mean, if you're just like everybody else, you have nothing to offer. You're just one more sheep bleating away. You don't want to be that way. You want to understand that, yes, there are standards and there are norms within a society, and that we accept those as living standards. But I don't compare myself to other people. I don't have to go out into the world and look at other people to determine how I'm doing in my life. That's got to be an inner thing. That's something that has to come from within. And yet there are people out there, there's many of them, who are going to constantly compare you and use all kinds of techniques and strategies to get you to conform by saying, don't you see that other people are doing that? But the first thing you have to do before you can even eliminate other people doing it to you is to get rid of it yourself. Get rid of this whole notion that I have to be somebody who other people accept or like in order for me to feel good. And you don't want your children to be believing that, well, everybody else does drugs, so that's why I did it. Or everybody else is jumping off the cliff, so that's why I jumped. Or everybody else is drinking and driving, so that's why I do it. Or everybody else is not wearing any clothes to school, so that's why I go naked. I mean, it's an absurdity. And if you're constantly comparing them to others, then don't be surprised when they do it themselves. Raise them to understand that there are peers out there who will try to pressure you, but if you buy into it, then you are the victim. That you have to decide for yourself what is morally proper and improper, and what works and doesn't work, and what is effective and ineffective, and not some invisible standard called peer pressure that is the biggest cop-out I've ever heard of. When somebody else is telling you to look at yourself and ask you the question, why aren't you like the other husbands or the other wives or the other workers and so on, that's something that you have to send a flag up for. And my response when anybody ever does that to me is, if I'm just like everybody else, what do I have to offer? I'm not here to be like the guy down the street. That isn't what I'm here for. I have my own purpose. He has his. He's on his path. I'm on mine. And I'm not here to emulate him. And you stop it. You put a stop to it right there.